There's a Looney Tunes cartoon where there's a frog that sings. I imagine some of you are familiar with this particular frog. Unfortunately, this frog doesn't always sing when the frog is supposed to. So the frog starts off with a number. He actually dances too. I mean, this is a very talented frog. Like, hello, my darling, hello, my baby. This man witnesses this incredibly talented, more talented even than I just did it, right? I mean, I want you guys to picture this. This is a really good singing, dancing frog. This man sees this and he's like, oh, this is it, jackpot. I'm going to take this frog and I'm going to see if I can get a gig and start putting this frog to use. And the frog goes in front of this first agent and nothing, just croaks. Ribbit. And the man gets thrown out of the office. As soon as he's alone with the frog does his song and dance again. As a kid, I always thought this was the biggest injustice in the world. Like, why, little frog? Why not sing for the other people too? Why not do your song and dance? And this poor man, he just ends up destitute at the end of the song and dance relationship with his frog. It was only much later in life that I was like, oh, that frog's doing the frog's thing. He's not obligated to perform for whoever this man desires for him to perform for. That frog, the man wanted to exploit the frog immediately. And the entitlement of the man it was lost on me. I know it's a strange metaphor for how we see the world, but there's a good bit of truth in there, because if you're like me, you identified with the man as the person to feel sorry for. And yet, he was the recipient of this beautiful little song and dance, but that wasn't good enough for him. He wanted to profit off of it. The metaphor gets worse because, to me, I am carrying it directly to the Transfiguration, where as a child I also thought that it would be a lot better if Jesus just glowed like that the entire time he was on the planet. But instead, at the end of this story, they told no one. Those three people got to see it. You know, as a kid, I'm like, well, maybe just go around dazzling white like the entire time. Maybe things would have played out differently. More people would have believed. It wouldn't be so hard. We wouldn't have to stretch our imaginations to see how God is at work. And maybe don't get in boats at all, Jesus. Just walk across the sea anytime you need to get somewhere. Just walk on water all the time. It's absurd to think that I could maybe formulate a better way for God to reveal God's intentions for humanity. What I see in the Transfiguration story is the revelation of the presence of the glory of God that sometimes is hidden. That what Peter and James and John are privy to is to see that value and worth can't always be seen. That this man, this teacher who has now told him he will be crucified and that he will die in Jerusalem, that his value is not what will happen to him. Rather, he is the beloved. This is my son. Listen to him. Value is a social construct where we assign worth to something. Paper money is just bizarre if we step back enough from that. It's like, okay, this one with a picture of this person on it, very valuable. This one not as valuable. And we know that it's valuable because we put a bunch of rocks in a bank in Texas. So it's definitely worth what I'm saying it's worth. Like how we ascribe value for monetary purchases gotten even stranger because now we don't even use anything tangible. It's like, oh no, there was a bunch of zeros and ones that were coded to say that now those zeros and ones belong to you. All that to say is we are always determining what to value and what is not valuable. You're in charge of that. You have the ability to either say, this is of value, there is worth here, or to just keep walking by. The word glory actually goes back to value and worth. In Hebrew, it's kabod, which is about how much something weighs, the weight of it. That's the glory, the value, the weight. The word glory, I think, gets misused a good bit. The football team I really appreciate, about every game, makes sure that God gets the glory for the football game. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not quite sure that's what was going on there. That when you score a touchdown, that God's glory was revealed, and you needed to make sure that no one thought that that's where your intrinsic value was. That somehow they would be confused that this action, what you've done, is the object, or should be the object of worship. But maybe it is. Maybe that's an audience that needs to hear that. One of my seminary professors, when he gave his first sermon, he was a preacher's kid. As they made their way out, the congregation just praised and praised Roger Nishioka. Oh, you're such a blessing, such a gift. And he would say, God be the glory, God be the glory. And his grandma came, and she overheard them saying that, and she's like, it wasn't that good. The glory in you all is not how you perform. It's not in scoring touchdowns or how well you spent the week, doing good or bad. Your glory is a constant. Your value, your preciousness. That glory is there. There's a quick leap right there in that I'm pointing to the glory in each one of you. In Paul's letters, he says that you're being transformed from one degree of glory to another. God's glorified in you, and you have this intrinsic preciousness that is not a social construct. It is the deepest reality that cannot be taken away. Now, society will compete with that and try to say that your value is based on this or this or this, and we certainly determine who or what is more precious based on their beauty or their skin color or their gender or their sexuality, and who is most valued and precious. But we know that you are precious because you're created in the image of God. You are precious and valuable because you are God's child. And you can't do anything about it. You can't mess it up. You'll always be beloved and precious. So that this way that God has determined to reveal God's self to us, not through transfiguration moments where we each get to go up with Peter, James, and John and see this. Instead, how we experience the divine is when God's glory shines through you. God's glory will and does shine through you. On our Bible study this week, Elder Honeycutt asked if when Margaret and I were ordained, did we feel like God was shining through us, or we're actually talking about transfigured at that point? That did we feel transfigured at that moment? And of course, Margaret and I were like, no, was terrifying to ever try to claim that maybe God is shining through us. But we did start to explore the idea of what it looks like as a community, that it's maybe a little easier to claim that God is shining through this church family, that God's glory can be seen because you all are communicating the value, the worth of each child of God in the world. Or when you love on people who are sick or homebound, you are saying, you're not forgotten, you are valuable, you are beautiful. When you work to make sure that there's not hungry people in Chattanooga, you're saying you matter, you are valuable, you're ascribing the preciousness to those people. My brother started this thing 20 years ago where if I was doing something right and maybe getting heat for it, he would say, he would just send a one-word text, shine, or shine, brother, shine. And he's borrowing from a song by Sean Mullins. And I've asked Amanda to just sing the last chorus of that. John Thomas is going to help.
Yes.
We're born to shimmer, we're born to shine, we're born to radiate. We're born to live, we're born to love, we're born to never hate. We're born to shimmer, we're born to shine, we're born to radiate. We're born to live, we're born to love, we're born to never hate.
Part of what it means to be the church family is to shimmer, to shine. This is your calling. Jesus was transfigured on the mountain. They saw the glory of God, and then we are called to emulate that for the world. That the world might see God's glory shining around, that the world might know their intrinsic value, their worth, that is not determined by what the world so often says. The last 2 weeks have been a tumultuous 2 weeks for John Thomas and for some of us as we've walked with him after a contract was terminated by Notre Dame High School. They found out that John Thomas was married to Jessie, and for Notre Dame, that meant that he couldn't direct a musical. It was painful. I wept like a baby when he told me. For all the people that have gotten that message from the church for millennia. I wept for him. I wept for the children of Notre Dame that got that message once again, that they're not as valuable if they're gay. But then I've seen a lot of beauty emerge from this. I've seen many of you rally around John Thomas and celebrate him and his love for Jessie and people in the community as well. And I think, or I know, that God has been working through John Thomas. I think that he has been shining. It's painful. I don't wish it on him. I think you all have helped him be able to stand firm and say, I am a child of God. I am worthy. I am precious in the sight of the Lord, just as I am. That's what communities can do for each other. Now, we're having Godspell Junior here, and at rehearsal on Friday, there's about 15 kids up here, and John Thomas had just heard the latest breaking news from Notre Dame, and there was this beautiful moment where he reminded each one of the children that they were created in the image of God, and that sometimes people might tell you differently, but that you're beautiful just as you are, and God loves you just as you are. Can you imagine, just for a moment, like how amazing that is that happened here, that he has an opportunity to share that kind of love with our kids? I mean, you can't craft something like that in a curriculum. And he couldn't get there on his own. This was a community that did this, that created space for people who have been hurt to hear that they are of value, that God's glory is in them, taxa, and it doesn't change, and it won't change. And when I heard that happened the way it happened, my wife came and told me, and we cried. Well, I'm glad that that's how God has chosen to reveal God's self, through you all, because that makes me love you all even more. So keep on shining brightly, my friends. God is at work in this place. Amen.